Hello everyone and welcome to Whiskey Wars and to a really special video for me personally. This is my ultimate guide to Jameson whiskey. Now I'm going to start doing these videos on the channel, not too often because it takes a lot of money and time to get enough whiskies to do these ultimate reviews. I did do one with Lafroig though in the past. I've also recorded one with Ardbeg that's going to be coming for you guys soon. And I'm going to make a separate playlist just for this style of review. But I really want to stress, guys, they're really hard to do and they take a lot of time to film. So if you're excited for it, please do leave a like down below and please do click that subscribe button. Okay, let's get stuck into it. So we have the Jameson Original, the standard one, the one that's available in every country in the world, bottled at 40% ABV. We have the Caskmates edition, which is the IPA cask. We have the Crested, which is 40%, the Stout cask, which is also the second Caskmates, which is 40%, finished in stout barrels, and that's a IPA beer barrels as well. We have a very interesting limited edition here. It's a Crested Stout edition. So it's the Jameson Crested that's then finished in stout barrels, but different ones to this one. Let's see how that compares. We have the Triple, which is a 1 litre bottling because it's duty free, it's a travel retail one. And this one has been finished in sherry, bourbon, but also Malaga casks. So the only third maturation whiskey here today. We have the most recent release, which is the Pot Still, bottled at 46%. Now this has 5 different cask finishes to it. The Black Barrel at 40%, a big popular fan favourite kind of whiskey. And then we have the Black Barrel Proof. Now this is the Black Barrel, but an extra 10% higher in ABV. And that was limited edition. This is also limited edition as well. Okay, let's get stuck into it. So, most of you guys know, if you're subscribers of the channel, you know this whiskey is just not one that I get on with at all. So for me, the flavours are very simple. I pretty much get 3 notes. And that is ethanol, which obviously is not very nice. I get green apples, and I get vanilla. And that vanilla sweetness is nice, but for me, it's just too strong in that ethanol note and it runs very thin. Okay, let's taste some. The taste for me is slightly better than the nose, which is unusual. I actually just got some harshness down the throat as I said that. Yeah, even though it's 40%, there is a harshness to it because I do think it's very spirit driven. But that vanilla note is really turned up on the taste, which I do appreciate. My favourite notes of that or the green apple. I like vanilla. Yeah, not my favourite. Shouldn't have poured that much out either. I will have to reuse just a couple of glasses here or there just because I don't have that many glasses. And I'm also running out on time. I've got to leave soon. So I'm really trying to get this review out for you guys before I go because I won't be able to film it for quite a while. Okay, the IPA is poured out. Risking it on these, leaving it there, that's for sure. Okay, how's the IPA? How does the IPA vary to the standard? They're the same proof, but this one's finished in IPA beer barrels. Different, which is a good thing. I get a little bit more, for me, I actually get a little bit of like a rye spice flavour, even though it doesn't have that in it. It has that flavour for me. Personally, I do think it's that citrusy element. And it adds a little bit of like a sharpness to the whiskey. It's quite lime forward, actually. And grapefruit as well. It's got that bitter citrus note to it. I still do get the green apples and the vanilla that I get on the standard one. So that does come through as well, which is nice, but it's not as strong. But I get that rye spice that I mentioned. It's almost like a cardamom. There's some sort of spice in here that's given it a really quite a nice flavour. Okay, onto the taste. And a touch more caramel on the taste. I wasn't getting that on the nose. On the taste, I get like a toffee apple mixed with those citruses and spice. I think this is an underrated whiskey. I'm not going to go overboard because it's not incredible, but I do think for the money, it's very good. I'll talk about price right at the end. I'm going to leave this one here just so I don't drink all of them. Okay, so we've almost finished the crested. I'll leave the bottle out just in front of the case as well, so you can see the bottle. So with the crested, for me, those citruses, the lime, the grapefruit, it changes into more of an orange now for me. The crested really does make that whiskey sweeter and less sharp. And I think it emphasises that caramel notes as well. So it's like a maple syrup and orange. Not terribly complex at all, but I get a little bit of that oak with the caramel and with the orange. This is also bottled at 40% ABV. Let's get into the taste. Very soft, very smooth. I think this is a very good whiskey. For the money, I think it's very good value for money, but it is very simple at the same time. Simple but nice and affordable. That's how I view this whiskey. I get a lovely bit of orange, caramel and oak. I don't really get much more. If anything, I would say maybe an apricot on that taste. But the oak is quite bitter, so it's not overly sweet. It's got a little bit of the play between the two. Okay, onto the stout cask, which is almost finished as well. See, that's the difficulty with filming these reviews. You have to wait and wait and wait to get all of them, but at that time you might have finished one or two, so you really have to, it's really hard to get them ready for these reviews, which is why you see so little of them on YouTube. Okay, so this is the second Caskmates edition now. We have the IPA and this is now the stout cask. And I've done it in this order just because of the next whiskey, so it flows quite nicely. This is also 40% ABV, but obviously stout beer barrels now instead of IPA beer barrels. And on the nose at least, it's still going to be fairly simple. All these whiskies so far are fairly simple, but they're all low cost and low proof. But this one's really going to give you something different now. For me, those stout barrels really do impart a lovely bit of chocolate, but also a coffee. So you have that chocolate sweetness, but with that coffee bitterness, mixed with just a tiny bit of oak, nothing too much, and some vanilla. And you could almost argue that vanilla turns into a little bit of like a vanilla cream. So this one really does, I think this whiskey is great to put in an Irish coffee, because you get a little bit of coffee, chocolate, but also like Irish whipped cream. Sorry, Irish double cream, not whipped cream. Almost committed sacrilege there. I think incredible value for your money. The vanilla is going to be the common note that runs through all of these whiskies. I've just realised I didn't mention it for the crested. All of these four so far have a really strong vanilla note. So it's like vanilla, double cream, coffee, bitterness with chocolate sweetness. And I'd say it edges more towards the chocolate sweetness than the coffee bitterness, which I know will appeal to more people. I've actually reviewed this in a war against the Teeling Stout Cask, and the two differences I found there were the coffee note and bitterness note was stronger on the Teeling, but the milk chocolate sweetness is stronger on the Jameson. It's just a really nice, simple but smooth dessert whiskey. I love this whiskey. I think it's great. It does run a little bit thin if you're being picky, but it is a low price whiskey. That's what you get. You don't get that indulgent, rich smoothness, but still, the notes you're getting for the money, I think this is really good. Okay, on now to the Crested Stout Cask. There's not enough room on this tray. Okay, so for me, this whiskey, obviously this is the least accessible whiskey because it is limited edition, although I see loads of them about in duty free, especially in Ireland. I don't know how accessible it is for you guys in America, I must admit. This whiskey has elements of the Crested, but also the Stout Cask. Duh, you might be thinking. But the point I want to get across is, do those notes go in sync with one another? Because I'm getting a coffee bitterness straight away on the nose. In fact, I think the coffee note is stronger in this Crested Stout than it is in the Stout. But it's mixed with that orange maple syrup, caramel, and vanilla. And I'm thinking, does this go? Does this really go? For me, it doesn't quite work. Yeah, it's such a shame because the Crested has a softness and a smoothness and a sweetness to it that the Caskmates just don't match. It tastes a little bit higher quality, so you have that, but then adding the Stout influence into it, it just kind of feels like, there's a saying, too many cooks spoil the broth. The saying is true with regards to this whiskey, for me at least. It's just the flavours are really, really nice on their own. I really enjoy the Crested and I really enjoy the Stout. But merging the two together just does not work for me. And it's just not a whiskey that I recommend. So, but luckily for you guys, if you can't get hold of this whiskey, it's limited edition, you're not missing out. So don't worry for it. I'd rather have a bottle of the Crested and the Stout than this one. Okay, so guys, I've poured the triple out, and just a reminder, this is sherry, bourbon cask, but also Malaga cask. 1 litre bottling from duty free, so travel retail. This nose is full of oranges. It reminds me of the Crested, but dare I say, a better version of the Crested. I think it's the Malaga cask. It just emphasises that orange note, and it really feels like freshly squeezed oranges with caramel. So, I actually think the vanilla note is a little bit stronger in the Crested. It's a little bit weaker in the triple actually. But that orange freshness, but also caramel sweetness, is stronger in this one. The nose is so beautiful, it's soft and it's smooth, and it's also, dare I say, a little bit buttery, which for the money, that's really exciting. Okay, let's get on to the taste. We're getting to the exciting bit of the review. If you've stuck around for this review, you're going to be really getting paid off for it, because we're now entering the really good stuff of Jameson, in my opinion. This, the nose is so good. If I'm being totally honest, I've not seen another review of this whiskey. Now, I've not searched it, but I've not seen it just in the recommendations or anything. So I really feel it's underrated and unsung. I really do feel like this is an elevated Crested, like a Crested ×2. I do have a suspicion though that this is actually younger than the Crested, but that Malaga cask, it adds like a smoothness and a creaminess to it, and a sweetness. I actually get the faintest hints of sultanas in with it, which adds that dark touch of sweetness. So good, It's one of my favourite Jamesons, and also it's an incredible price. Get more on that later. Okay, let's move this one back into this space here. Pop this there, and now let's get stuck into the Jameson pot still, the most recent of my Jameson purchases, but also their most recent release as well. Should put it there. So now this is the first whiskey that's going to get that proof jump. We're now going to jump to 46% ABV. And this has been finished in 5 different casks. I'll just touch on those casks now for you guys. 3 of which are virgin oak casks. So we have an Irish virgin oak cask, a European but also an American virgin oak cask. But it also has a sherry cask in it as well as an ex-bourbon cask. And straight away on the nose, you really can pick up that virgin oak cask. But for me, the surprise was it's not as strong as you would think. Maybe a little bit like the Angel's Envy bourbon, where it's port cask finished, but you only get a little bit. For me, you only get a little bit of that virgin oak cask. It's definitely there, and it's identifiable and noticeable. So you get that wood spice, but it's mixed really well with a vanilla cream. And this is the pot still as well, Jameson. So it's their first pot still, I believe. It really gives like a creaminess, a vanilla creaminess to it, an oatiness as well. It has that rice pudding note with the virgin oak spice and that vanilla. And it's really interesting. I think it's a good note, that rice pudding, because I've had it quite a few times with raisins in. And that sherry cask, it's not strong at all, but it does give you that vanilla. So we've got that vanilla and that raisin, but that creaminess, and it's like a rice pudding creaminess with some oak spice as well. I do think there's a touch of spice in here, but it's nothing strong. Like I would say it's cinnamon, ground cinnamon, with the faintest touch of nutmeg. It's really not going to be spicy, but there's something there in that pot still. Creamy, oaty, rice pudding, vanilla, sultana. Really nice nose. On to the taste. That taste is really pleasant. Now for me, the sherry cask is not as strong as I would like, but there's enough there to give it that subtle sweetness. And that raisin really does help this whiskey. It's certainly an elevation of the whiskies before it. Certainly that extra 6%, the variety of cask finishes, but now that raisin note mixing with that creaminess, it's adding something very different again to this lineup. Let's get the black barrel in. Yeah, quite a few bottles out, isn't there? So please guys, just a friendly reminder, just because of how long this review takes to film and collect these whiskies, please do click the subscribe button, but also that like button as well. Thank you so much. Okay, onto the black barrel. Now this is many people's favourite Jameson. It's very accessible. It's available in a variety of countries, and it's a really good one. So this is a more heavily charred barrel that it's matured in, and it apparently gives it a smoother taste profile. So straight away, not going to come as a surprise, since the vanilla note has been in every whiskey, but I would say the weakest it's been is in the triple triple. It's also there in the black barrel. Now this is a proof drop again to 40%. Like most of them, it's only this one at 46. I do get a toasted oak, so I think for a lot of bourbon lovers out there, this black barrel is famous for a reason in America. I think that toasted oak, that smoothness that it gives, really does pull on heartstrings a lot with the American audience. And it gives this lovely vanilla cream, toasted oak, but no wood spice. And a lovely little bit of caramel, toffee. It's really quite nice, and a really sweet cinnamon. It's nothing spicy, but there's something there that just gives it a sweetness. Onto the taste. Really good. Smooth, soft, sweet. You're not going to get a sherry sweetness though in this whiskey. It's a vanilla whipped cream sweetness with that toasted American oak. Toasted oak and vanilla cream. It's quite simple, and a little bit of caramel. It's quite simple, but it's soft, and it's a very, very easy drinker. It's a really good whiskey. Okay guys, we made it to our final whiskey. I'm not going to wash this glass out because it is the Black Barrel yet again, but the Black Barrel proof. Now this was a limited edition whiskey, bottled at 50%, so an extra 10% in it ABV. Let's just see how this whiskey changes from the 40% to the 50%. Since this is a black bottle, my gripe with black bottles is always, if the whiskey is good, you can't see how much you have left. And this is truly opaque. You cannot see through this at all. Okay, let's see what this whiskey is about. Does that extra 10% improve the whiskey? A lot of people might think so, but let's see. Straight away on the nose, that vanilla whipped cream that I was talking about, the toasted oak, it's still there, but there's additional stuff in here. And it's fruitiness, but rather excitingly, for me, it's tropical fruits that enter into this whiskey. Now for me personally, I enjoy my red fruits, but in Irish whiskey, if you can get that tropical fruit note in, I am sold. And with the softness and the smoothness and the sweetness of that vanilla, a little bit of that toasted oak, but now you're adding in a little bit of red fruits, that's there as well. But for me, I do get the presence of tropical fruit. I would say for me it's like a papaya, but also a passion fruit. Now my favourite is mango. It doesn't quite get there, but I do get passion fruit and papaya. Okay, let's check the taste out. Such a good whiskey. It's so good. Ah. Yeah, Jameson have knocked this one out of the park. If you can give me that vanilla toasted oak sweetness, but then proof it up 10% and add in tropical fruit sweetness, it's ridiculous. This whiskey needs to be a lot more popular. It's very underrated. I actually think two of these whiskies are extremely, extremely underrated, and I'll touch upon that later. But for right now, this Black Barrel proof, unfortunately it's limited edition. Guys, please contact Jameson. This one has to be a core release. It's so, so good. I really want to buy it again. I'm not sure if I can, or if I'd have to pay a lot more money, but this one is incredible. So good. I recently posted in March actually my top 3 Irish whiskies. This one featured in number 2. So it's, yeah, a little bit of a spoiler, but this whiskey is incredible. Oh, tropical fruits mixed with caramel, mixed with that vanilla cream and toasted oak. It's soft, it's smooth, it's sweet. So, so good. Okay guys, I'll quickly touch upon the price points of each one and then give my ratings from best to worst, which I think will be quite helpful for you guys, especially if you consider buying any of these Jamesons. So we have the standard Jameson. Now this bottle is in the UK at least, and these are going to be UK prices, it's around £16-17 in the UK. I would actually say give this one a miss. I really don't recommend it at all. Next, we have the Caskmates IPA, and this one's going to be priced around that. On offer, it's about I actually picked the full bottles of both Caskmates up for £17, but they actually can be around £23 to £24. But if you get them on an offer, they're below 20, so they're really worth it. I think they're great value for money, and I recommend buying both of these whiskies. Next up, we have the Crested. This one's going to be a bit more money on offer, and I would only recommend buying this one on offer. It's £25 or €25 in Ireland. I got this one in Ireland. I think it's really good value for money at £25. I wouldn't pay above 30 for it though. Then we have the Crested Stout. Now this was a duty-free purchase, limited edition, and I think I paid €35 for this one, but it doesn't matter because I wouldn't buy it again. I don't recommend this one at all. It just wasn't that good. Another duty-free one. This is a 1 litre bottling, the Triple Triple. So underrated in my opinion. For me, this is a staple. In fact, if people often say they like to have the standard Jameson just as something that they can have in the house as a house whiskey. This is my house whiskey. A little bit more expensive, but really not by much. I actually paid, I think it was €26 for this whiskey for a 1 litre bottling. That makes about €20, £17-18 for a 700ml equivalent bottling. So a little bit more than this, but not by much. Next up, we have the Jameson Pot Still. Now this whiskey is €60 in Ireland or £50 in the UK. I actually picked this one up in duty free in Ireland because I was going to the UK. I missed out on all the extra prices, which is good, the extra tax, the European tax. And I paid €46, which is about £41-42. For that money, I think it's really good and well worth it. For the £50 or the €60, I think it's really at its top price. I would say if you like Jameson, go for it, but don't rush out to the shops to get it. It's one of those where it's like, if you're feeling like you want to try the Jameson Pot Still, because you like the notes I talked about, it's worth getting, but I wouldn't rush out to the shops to get it. That's how I feel. I don't see it on offers though. If I did, it would definitely be a pickle. So if you see an offer, get it. Next up, we have the Black Barrel, bottled at 40%, the standard release, available everywhere. This whiskey is actually around the €40 mark, RRP. I don't like it at that price. However, you can see it on offers, so the Black Barrel for me is similar to the Crested. These do hit offers every year around that £25 mark, and I think for £25, snap them up. They're amazing value, really good, massively worth it. I think for the RRP, that £35, that £40 mark, wait for an offer. Finally, we have the Black Barrel Proof. Now this one I picked up and I can't believe it. I picked it up for €35 or €40. I think it was €40, which is about £35 for a 50% Black Barrel. I mean, in duty free. If this whiskey was available for that right now, I would buy 4 or 5 bottles. It's incredible. It's so good. I actually don't know the price in today's market on this bottling, and I don't even know if you can buy it anymore, or if it's secondhand market. If it's secondhand market, I always say don't bother. Hopefully though, Jameson do re-release this whiskey as part of their core range and make it accessible to everyone. Maybe price it up to the 60 to 70 mark. Now, what I will say, in the Jameson distillery, they do a cask strength release, bottled at around the 56% mark of the Black Barrel, but it's €135. Now, I lived in Cork for 3 years, and I love this whiskey, and I refuse to pay that for the cask strength one, because it's only 6% more. €135. I think it's outrageous. It's disgusting. This one though, when it came out, was so much cheaper and really good. So I recommend getting the proof out of all of the black barrels, to be honest. Okay, that's the pricing sorted. Let's get the ranking sorted. So in number 1, I recommend the Jameson Black Barrel Proof. Of course, 50%. That tropical fruit note is just incredible. This is the best Jameson whiskey that I own. In second place, I'm going extremely controversial, because most people might think I'm going for the pot still. I'm not. I'm going for the triple triple. I think this whiskey, for the money, is incredible. I really do. For me, there's just something about this whiskey that I really enjoy. This one takes second place for me, definitely. That addition of the Malaga cask is so nice with this whiskey. Okay, in third place, it is the Jameson Pot Still. This is a nice whiskey, it's a good whiskey, but I don't think it's a great whiskey. Just because that price, if it was a little bit cheaper, maybe towards that £40 mark, it would be a lot more attractive, but it is very good. And I do recommend people pick this one up, by the way. It's a nice whiskey. Okay, in fourth place, it's pretty much a tie actually between 2 whiskies. So fourth and fifth are going to be very close. For me, just because of the price. And I know that I can pick this one up on offer for that £17, £18 mark, whereas the other one is 25. I'm going to go for the Stout Cask Caskmates edition. The chocolate sweetness, the coffee, the cream, really nice in this whiskey. Yeah, really good. So in fourth place, the Stout Cask. In fifth, and not very far behind, is going to be the Crested. This whiskey is very nice. Really recommend it, especially if you can find it towards that £25 mark. Well worth it. Okay, now we're in the worst 3 of the whiskies. I'm actually going to go for the IPA Caskmates now. It's nice, it's really good. For me, I'm very seasonal when it comes to this whiskey. Sometimes I really like it, and other times it's just okay. For me right now, I'm in that okay moment with it. So for me, this one comes in number 6. So the worst 2 whiskies, and I would genuinely recommend all of them 6. These next 2, I would recommend that you just skip. So in number 7, I'm going to go for the Crested Stout Cask. It's not the worst whiskey, I know I bag on it, but it's not the worst whiskey. However, I prefer the Crested and the Stout to the Crested Stout, so I would recommend giving this one a miss. It's also more expensive than those 2. I think I picked it up for €35, so twice the cost of the Stout and about 50% more than the Crested. I'd recommend giving this one a miss. Then we have in last place, obviously, scrap this one. A lot of people like it, I don't. Standard Jameson. When you have these sorts of flavours for these sorts of prices, why would you go for that one? That's my message. Don't go for it, go for these. There's so much more flavour from Jameson for really good prices. So yeah, skip that one. Go for any of these over it, that's for sure. Okay guys, an incredibly long video. I've just seen this, it's towards the hour mark on the video. I've been recording, sat here talking to you guys for 1 hour. Once I edit all of it, it's going to be a lot shorter. So please guys, if you enjoyed the video or you appreciate the effort, please do click that like button, but also that subscribe button. If you've got here till the end, please do let me know in the comments down below. It'd be really interesting to know who actually got to the end of the video, because I would imagine not many people. It's going to be very long. Here is my Jameson buying guide. So thank you so much for watching this video. I'm tired, I'm going to go to sleep right now. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you all for the next Whiskey War.